I looked for a Caperer fly pattern on the World Wide Web. I did find one, but it's very different. It's a dry fly, the body very different, the hackle very different than this fly from Mary Orvis Marbury's book, Favorite Flies and Their Histories. I'm tying it from the illustration in Mary's book. The book was published in 1892. I'm tying it on a number 8 hook with rusty brown thread. I'm putting a gold tag on it. This is extra small gold tinsel. It's a bicolor, so I'm tying it with a gold towards the hook, and then I flip it as I begin to wind, and then put enough wraps down the bend of the hook to create that tag. I am using this particular hook because I think it looks more like the hooks that Mary used, with this kind of rounded back around the bend of the hook. So bring that tag back up and bring my thread. I just took it up to the eye of the hook to get it out of the way, and then a few wraps over the tinsel in order to tie it in. Go ahead and grab that tinsel and clip it off, and then I can continue wrapping up over the tinsel. Be sure it's tied in. Take my thread up to the front behind the eye of the hook. Make sure that I'm leaving plenty of room for the wing and the hackle. The body, I'm using wool. This is wool crewel yarn. It's a brown one, and I want a more of an orange look, so I'm coloring it with orange permanent marker. And I think it gives me a pretty close look to the color on the fly in Mary's illustration. I did find a caperer that looks very much like this one. No recipe, just a picture. And there was a comment that it did have a wool body. I don't know what it would be like to dub with wool. I should try that sometime, but I do have this wool yarn, so it works fairly well. Nice, tight, touching wraps. Kind of gives it a little bit of a segmented look. And bring that up to the front of the hook where I'm going to tie it off. Wrap up over the top of it to tie it off. Kind of standardized with these 3 over the top wraps. Clip out the yarn, and I forgot to wrap underneath of it. Let me just wrap a couple up over the end of that to hold it in place. For the wing, I am using some pullet cape. I don't know what Mary would have used, but this one looks close to the illustration. I'm guessing she probably used quill. So I just want to size that wing and then pull back on the fibers along the stem and open it up right there for my tying. I think that's a little bit long. Shorten the wings just a little bit and find a good tie-in spot. Pulling back on those fibers just opens it up, so I have kind of a clear space to tie without trapping extra fibers. And then I can pull up on the butt ends, wrap underneath of them, and then I'll clip out the butt ends of those pullet. So pullet is a hen before it starts laying her eggs. This is a hen cape, and I'm using brown feathers. Choosing a feather that doesn't have a lot of black in it for the front hackle. Peeling off the fluff at the bottom of the feather and breaking it. I think there's enough left there. I'll just pull off some of the fibers from that. Then turn that feather around so I can grab the tip of the feather with my hackle plier. There's kind of a break in the feather, so I'm just going to use that break and pull back on the fibers towards the butt end, whatever's left of the butt end. And then I have that tip separated. I'm going to cut off the tip, just leaving a small triangle. You can tie it in first and cut it off after, but I kind of prefer to cut it off first. And then, depending on the size of the hook, how big a triangle I need there. And I'll see if I can grab that tiny little bit of a butt end. Good. And then pull back on the fibers. So I'm tying this in what today we would call a soft hackle wet fly. I think in Mary's day they didn't really make a distinction between wet and dry, and pretty much fished everything wet. So the caperer, she said, is a dusk insect that capers across out of the bushes, out of the shrubs along the side of the stream into the water. So I'll just wrap that a few times till I'm pretty much out of fiber. Wrap up over the butt end to tie it in. My standard 3 wraps. And then I can let go with the hackle pliers and pull back on everything. And it's kind of hard to grab that little stem, but get enough wraps in there to hold that hackle in place. And yeah, it's too small to grab a hold of, so I just need to grab my scissors, and not being very successful at clipping that out either. But there we go. Well, okay. Try to clip off the nub there too so that it's not sticking out. And then go ahead and wrap. And I did use this color thread, rusty brown, because I think it matches the color of the head in the illustration. It's a big enough head. I can put a whip finish on that. Doesn't take a lot of wraps with the whip finish, just enough to tie a knot there. I'm going to put some head cement on it. So then just nip out the thread. And I do use a diluted goop for the head cement. Drop a needle in my jar, pick up a drop, and just put that on the head, and it soaks in and glues the head together. That will dry clear, and right now when it's wet it's dark. But so I do have here a caperer from Mary Orvis Marbury's book, Favorite Flies and Their Histories.